Carlin Bates Stewart thought she was sharing one of those simple, feel-good family moments, the kind that people smile at and move on from. The internet once again proved that nothing stays simple for long. What started as a magical Disney Cruise surprise for her kids quickly turned into something much bigger. Not just a cute family memory, but a conversation, a debate, and for some people, even a concern. And the interesting part is, it all looked completely harmless in the beginning. Carlin and Evan gathered their kids in the living room like it was just another normal day. There was no big, dramatic buildup at first, just a TV screen, a slideshow, and one word that immediately caught attention. Surprise! Layla and Zade sat there, curious, a little confused, trying to piece things together. You could tell they had no idea what was coming, and honestly, that's what made the moment feel so genuine. Carlin and Evan leaned into the suspense. They didn't just reveal it right away. They played with it, asking questions, dropping hints. Are we staying home? Are we going somewhere? Driving? Flying? Somewhere hot? Somewhere cold? And slowly, the clues started stacking up. Disney, a boat, a cruise. Then suddenly, it clicked. They were going on a Disney cruise. And Layla's reaction? Pure, unfiltered joy. The kind of reaction that doesn't need editing or exaggeration. She screamed, jumped, laughed, completely overwhelmed in the best way possible. It felt real. It felt like one of those moments parents wish they could bottle up forever. Zade, on the other hand, looked like he was still catching up, trying to process everything, but clearly excited in his own way. At that point, for most families, that would have been enough. A full, complete, beautiful moment. But this wasn't the end, because the next part is what really made the moment feel bigger. After packing, heading to the airport, and going through their first flight together as a family of 5, the kids still believed the cruise itself was the big surprise. They landed in Florida, walked into baggage claim, probably tired, still excited, and then suddenly, everything shifted again. Standing there were Evan's parents, and you could actually see the moment it registered for the kids. That split second where confusion turns into realization. Their grandparents weren't just there randomly, they were coming with them. And that second surprise hit differently. It wasn't loud like the first one. It was softer, more emotional, more about connection than excitement. On the surface, it's exactly the kind of moment people love to see. A family together, kids excited, grandparents included, memories being made. And on Instagram, that's exactly how it was received. Comments filled up with hearts, people calling it beautiful, special, unforgettable. Other family members chimed in, sharing how meaningful it looked. For a lot of viewers, that's where the story ended. But for others, that's where it started. Because once the video left Carlin's page and spread into other spaces, the tone changed. People started looking at it differently. Not just as a moment, but as a pattern. Some viewers began asking questions that go beyond just this one video. Like, how often are these big, emotional, surprise moments happening? Are the kids always being filmed during their most genuine reactions? And at what point does a real moment start to feel like something that's being created for the camera? Then came the homeschooling discussion. Some people pointed out how often the family travels and wondered how that fits into the kids' education. Others pushed back, saying homeschool families don't follow the same rules and that travel itself can be part of learning. And honestly, both sides have a point. But then the conversation went even deeper. The influencer lifestyle, the money, the possibility that trips like this could be sponsored, supported, or connected to a larger content strategy. Now, none of that was confirmed, but the fact that people are thinking that way shows how much the audience's perspective has changed. Because a few years ago, this might have just been seen as a happy family vacation. Now, people look at the same thing and ask what's behind it. And that's where things get complicated, because for one group of viewers, this was simple. A mom and dad surprised their kids. The kids were happy, the grandparents joined, end of story. But for another group, it wasn't just about what happened, it was about what it represents. The constant surprises, the cameras always being present, the feeling that even the most personal moments are being shared, packaged, and turned into content. And maybe the most uncomfortable question of all, do kids even get to have private memories anymore when their lives are this public? To be fair, nothing in the video suggests the kids were unhappy. In fact, the opposite is true. They looked genuinely excited, loved, and safe. But the concern isn't just about how they feel right now. It's about later. What happens when they grow up and realize that so many of their childhood moments were watched, analyzed, and discussed by strangers? That's the part people don't always see in the moment. And Carlin, whether she intends to or not, is right at the center of that conversation. Because she's not just any mom. She grew up in a reality TV family. Her life was filmed, shared, and consumed by audiences. And now, her kids are growing up in a different version of that same spotlight. Not TV cameras, but phones. Not weekly episodes, but daily uploads, and a much bigger, much faster audience. So when she posts something like this, it doesn't stay small. It becomes part of a bigger story, a bigger pattern, a bigger conversation. At the end of the day, what you see depends on how you look at it. Some see a caring family making magical memories together. Others see a family navigating the blurred line between real life and content. And the truth is, both perspectives can exist at the same time, because this wasn't fake, but it also wasn't private. And that's the reality of family life in the social media era. Even the most genuine moments don't stay untouched for long. So, the real question is, are people overthinking a beautiful family memory? Or are they starting to notice something that's becoming more common than we realize? Let me know what you think. And if you really step back and look at it, this isn't just about one Disney cruise or one surprise video anymore. It's about something bigger that's quietly changing how people see families like Carlin and Evan's, because there was a time when moments like this would have just lived inside a photo album. Maybe a home video that only close family ever saw, a private memory that stayed exactly where it belonged. But now, those same moments don't just get remembered, they get uploaded, they get shared, they get watched by thousands, sometimes millions of people who don't actually know the family, but still feel like they do. And that changes things, not always in obvious ways, but in subtle ones. Because when a camera is always there, even unintentionally, it starts to shape the moment just a little bit. Not necessarily in a fake way, but in a way where you know this is going to be seen again later. And that's the part people are starting to notice more. Some viewers pointed out how perfectly everything seemed to unfold. The timing of the reveal, the camera angles, the reactions, even the second surprise at the airport. It all felt very complete, almost like a full story from beginning to end. Now, that doesn't mean it wasn't real, but it does make people wonder how much of this is just life happening naturally and how much of it is being shaped into something shareable. And to be fair, that's not just a Carlin thing. That's the entire influencer world right now. Family moments are no longer just moments, they're content. And content has a certain rhythm to it. A beginning, a build-up, a payoff, and sometimes a second surprise. But then there's another layer that people don't always talk about as much. The kids themselves. Because right now, Layla and Zade are young. Everything feels fun, exciting, magical. They're reacting in the moment, not thinking about who's watching or how it's being perceived. But as they get older, that awareness changes. At some point, kids start to understand that the camera isn't just for family memories, it's for an audience. And that's where things can shift. Some people believe growing up in that kind of environment can be empowering. Kids become confident, comfortable, expressive. Others feel it can create pressure, a quiet expectation to react, to perform, to be on, even when they don't realize it. And again, both things can be true. That's why this conversation doesn't have a simple answer, because it's not black and white, it's layered, and Carlin, whether she planned it this way or not, represents that new generation of reality TV families, the ones who moved from traditional television into social media, where everything is faster, more personal, and in many ways, more constant. There's no off-season, no break between episodes. Life just keeps going, and the content goes with it. And maybe that's why even something as joyful as a Disney cruise surprise ends up being analyzed this deeply. because people aren't just reacting to the moment itself, they're reacting to what it represents. A shift in how families share their lives. A shift in what childhood looks like in the digital age. A shift in what used to be private, becoming public. At the same time, it's important to remember something simple. None of us are inside that family. We see clips, moments, edited pieces of a much bigger picture. We don't see the quiet days, the off-camera time, the parts that don't get posted. So while it's easy to form opinions, it's also easy to forget that there's always more happening behind the scenes than what we're shown. And maybe that's where the balance needs to be, recognizing that something can be both a real meaningful family moment and also something that raises valid questions. Because at the end of the day, this wasn't a negative moment. It was happy, exciting, full of love. The kids smiled, the parents smiled, the grandparents were there. That part is real. But the conversation around it, that's real too. And it's probably not going away anytime soon. Because as long as families continue to share their lives online, people will continue to watch, react, question, and interpret things in their own way. So maybe the real takeaway isn't about whether Carlin was right or wrong. Maybe it's about understanding that the line between memory and content is getting thinner every day, and moments like this sit right on that line. So again, it comes back to you. When you watched this, what did you see? A sweet family surprise? Or something that felt a little more complicated? Because clearly, people are seeing both.